Why do you coach? Thank you for joining us today for part 2 of our conversation with Joe Ceglia, co-founder of Maverick Showtime and high school athletic director.
There's a classic story of Dean Smith when he was recruiting Kenny Smith, who was at the time the #1 point guard in New York City. And he walks into the gym for warm-ups. He got there for warm-ups. And he left before the game even started. And they said, well, why are you watching the game? He said, I saw everything I needed to see. Because I saw the way he treated his teammates in warm-ups, and the guy was sweating profusely, and he worked his butt off in warm-ups. That's a guy I want.
That's pretty cool.
That's a great story.
It's a great story because we talk about PKE and E, and then evaluating E and who in the players you want, or in Joe and I's case a little bit the E you want in coaches.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's brilliant. I mean,
so we've talked about E a couple times today, just for the folks who haven't seen episode 1. It's really it's the breaking down of what's going on in your head. So it's physical, it's knowledge, and then emotion. And it's managing your own emotions and managing your situation. That's why when we talk about Joe's resilience as a young man, it's so impressive. That means he had incredible E. He had, physical attributes, obviously highly skilled, all that kind of stuff. And he had knowledge of the game, but it was really the E that got him from not being recruited to being an All-American. Right?
Yeah, I remember when. So it was kind of thematic in my career where, because it wasn't the most skilled athletically. I mean, there are guys like Matt Strebel, Jake Berg, just guys that are Nick Gannon, just like incredible athletes. Roy Cole's just incredible athletes that have been around. I was never the most athletic. But you always had to. I just get a grind. I always had a chip on my shoulder. But I remember, so Syracuse not being recruited, telling me, pretty much to pound sand, going to Gettysburg, then taking a chance and transferring up there and working out. Then playing for the Wings, making it as a taxi squad guy. That was a wonderful experience. And I remember the MLL came out. It was Major League Lacrosse. Yeah. And they did this. I don't know if I've ever told you the story. They did this whole Inside Lacrosse is this publication. It used to be in paper. Now everything's online. Right. And they came out with this whole thing, like a mock draft. And I remember they had mock draft going 50th overall. Like we went down to Florida for a combine. I thought I played very well at the combine. I'm like, this is going to be a home run. Like, I'm talking to my old man. I'm like, I'm actually going to make money playing this silly sport. And Inside Lacrosse had a mock draft and a fake team. The Baltimore Blue Crabs took me like 50th overall. And there were going to be 166 guys picked. Wow. Like, it's a home run. And I was playing with the Wings, and it was the Philadelphia convention. The lacrosse convention was being held here in Philadelphia. So they had like a draft party. And everyone's going, we're watching the bar, and they're watching the draft. And one at a time, the Wings teammates, boop, 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 being picked left and right. I'm like, I'm supposed to go 50th. We're around 100. 166 players picked. I wasn't picked. Oh. And I was like, that didn't make sense. So then I was fortunate where somebody called me to give me a free agent tryout. And I was like, there's no way I'm not making this team. And it's always been kind of like that motivating factor to I don't know what just I guess my wiring. Right. But yeah, I mean that really made obviously a mark on me.
Right. So, well, obviously, and we talked about it in detail in episode 1, but I think Nick and I both believe, and I don't want to speak for Nick, but the E is really the biggest thing that makes the biggest difference. Physical attributes, you got to have them, right? Knowledge of the game, you have to have them. But the big, giant differentiator is you. And you're super high E. You're driven, you're resilient, you're not going to stop, you're going to keep going, you're going to develop whatever skills, whatever strength, whatever stamina you need to be successful. And you're just going to keep going. And that's really incredibly impressive.
I think that's the hard part. It's second nature for people. For some people that have it. So how do you build E? I think that's really
that's a great
Like,
Right, that is. And I tell you, I believe that there's lots of ways to build E that we ignore it, but I know for me, I'll just give you one example for myself. I'm not going to make it a marathon swimming show. Trust me, Joe, you're more important than this. But like one things I would do in my workouts, it sounds silly, but swimmers all the time, their goggles fall up and they clear their goggles, right? I wouldn't let myself clear goggles in training, right? So they'd fog up and I wouldn't be able to see anything and I'd just leave it. I would not touch them.
But you already have E to know to do that,
right.
to test yourself.
No, right.
So coaches... That's something something similar.
Coaches
don't make it easy on them.
Right. You say things like, don't touch your goggles, leave them go. And again, it works for marathon swimming. So, because then in the swim, when you're actually doing the marathon swim, right, you manage your E the other way. And that is when you stop for a feed, if your goggles are foggy, you clear them. And all of a sudden, oh, it's not so bad. I can see. And so your E actually gets a boost during the actual swim because it's not as hard as your workouts.
Yeah.
So I contend that I don't know what it is, right, in every sport. I don't know what it is for you guys in lacrosse, but there's ways for coaches to make it harder emotionally on the players. So by the time they get to the game's actually easier. And I think it's something in every sport.
I guess I should have clarified. I struggle with how do I, as the athletic as the boss of the coaches, as the coach of the coaches, how do I build E into coaches where either they may come without E or very limited because they're great people, they're educators, and they want to get involved in something they don't maybe know a lot about or that's outside their comfort zone. So I think about that.
I'd say to you, first of all, if they're willing to do that, then if they're willing to make themselves that vulnerable to go take on something like that, learn something new, then they do have some E. They do have some resilience. They do have some vulnerability in them to try to get better. And I would think that first step of helping somebody's E is making them aware of it. E. People just don't talk about it.
Right.
They just talk about mental game and mental strength. And it's really, you have to break it down. It's like, okay, they have to learn the game. And then they have to learn the E in order to get better at it, right? And so,
yeah,
right.
No, I agree. I think it's a trick. Joe, you mentioned a few, but I mean, you have an impressive playing, coaching, professional. What are you most proud of as an accomplishment?
I guess as a player, believe it or not, a lot of people are like, oh, it's got to be your national championship. I think actually being a captain of the two-time winning MLL team, I would say, is most
elected captain.
Yeah, correct.
Wow.
Because because we didn't have when you're in college, you're all there for a purpose. It's a national championship. It was awesome, and I guess part of it was like we were supposed to win. So when you're supposed to win, winning isn't as cool in the sense that, when you're not supposed to win.
Right.
So when we're in the MLL, and I'm not glorifying what the Major League Lacrosse was. It was just another avenue for guys to play lacrosse against each other at a high level. It was a group of guys coming together for one common goal and being extremely successful, but also really enjoying being around each other. Like there's still a team text chain that goes around.
Is that right?
It's 20 years later. So, and they're hilarious, but, and Tony Resch was the coach of that team. So that I think was really, that and crazy was, maybe getting cut from Team USA.
Wait, that's one of your proudest moments?
Yeah. Because I played the best I could play. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was told by a few that if his name was different, he would have made it. That he played the best at that tryout. I mean, I'm saying that. Who knows? Somebody might be listening saying like, no way.
But see, that's where E is so important, right?
Yeah.
But so let me interject there. But the person who made the roster,
he's one of the best players.
Is 10 times the athlete I'll ever was. Yeah. So it made sense to me. But I guess that's why it doesn't really bother me.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But how far can he hit a golf ball?
It's probably a hack. But it's funny you say about E, someone with high E, right?
Right.
You would think that I would hit more golf balls than Tiger Woods on a given day. I I really don't.
Right.
So, but I said to Nick actually today, the way over, I was like, I'm looking forward to hitting a couple balls today before the round. And I never was like that. And he was like, huh, really? I'm like, yeah, I just want to finish high. It's just weird how it all shifts.
Right.
I guess because the stakes aren't what they were when I felt them to be. That changes.
So talk about, we went back to, okay, do you want to follow through
So
with that?
I want to go back to the E a little bit because you guys played a sport that in some ways is subjective, like being selected for, like in swimming or golf, even golf, right? Golf, you guys are going to play today. The score is the score, right? We could play 1,000 times and I would lose to you guys 1,000 times, and there's, and it's just going to be the score, right? Swimming's the same way. It's the fastest person for whatever distance and whatever stroke. There's no arguing about who's the best, right? Lacrosse, soccer, basketball, swimming, not swimming, water polo, right? All those sports is subjective. And so you get styles of play, you get coaches that have favorite, you get all that kind of stuff, right? And so I think kids playing those sports have to have, in some ways, not a high, I don't want to say a higher, but a different E to deal with the subjectivity like you did.
Or a coach that really understands it. Because we've been putting kids in positions to be successful to what they can do. I guess that's also a part of Tony and Coach Donnie and Tim. Like they're able to see what your value, I guess is not the right term, but how you could best help the team,
right? And
really inflating the number of times you're put in that position to do so.
Right.
If Tony Resch would have told me, I expect you to be a goal scorer for our team, I would have been cut in 3 minutes. So knowing playing to your players' strengths is critical to being successful. Because I think there's a lot of kids that probably have false E because mom and dad is telling them how great they are.
Right.
But I mean, what the second thing you said about your biggest accomplishment was getting cut, right? I mean, you don't get to where you are without being told no at coming out of high school and getting cut, right? And being told you're whatever too small and all this other stuff. So and maybe I'm just making something up, but we don't let kids fail. I don't think is enough, right? In today's world, yeah. and probably I would say even back a little bit, we didn't value it, and fair to say you value failure.
Yeah, value and see how the kid responds, or the coach or myself, how you respond to the failure.
Right.
And that's it sounds kind of cliche, but.
We'll be right back to the Nick Anthony Show.
Today's show is brought to you by the free film available on YouTube, A Dream Plus a Plan. Learn what it takes to accomplish your dream, whatever your dream is. Go to www.adreamplusaplan.com, adreamplusaplan.com.
Welcome back to the Nick Anthony Show.
But that's what I'm saying. So I think in subjective sports, it's hard for coaches to measure or even look at a kid's E and value it. They might look at height or hand size or wingspan or whatever, all that kind of stuff. But they can't say, oh, when this kid gets punched in the mouth, they get better.
Yeah.
Right? Do I want somebody like that on my team?
Well, that's why Joe didn't get recruited.
Mike Tyson.
Yeah. Everyone has a plan.
Until they get punched in the mouth. I actually said that in one of the shows.
That's why Joe didn't get to Syracuse the first time.
Is because
because they looked at him and said, "Here's 5'7", 5'8", and right. he's a long stick midi." But
that's what I'm saying. But for him to stay in his sport, right? It was really hard because it was subjective. He knew he had a high E because he was just living it. He was playing every day. Maybe you didn't know it in those terms, Joe, but you knew that you're playing lacrosse. You knew how much you could fight through things.
I sorry to interrupt.
I guess,
but. As now I'm an old man and I look back, all those decisions made almost made sense.
They were your wiring a little bit, like how you're
No,
wired.
It's like
Not
I
take
understand
you?
why Coach Desko is like, we know you are, but you don't think you play. Like, because he didn't have enough data
Correct.
to be able to make a more informed decision. But so
But
I don't know.
your E had to be super high because of that, right? If your E if you weren't as resilient as you were,
I was gut punched.
but that stops 99% of the population. And I don't have that. That's not a scientific number. I'm just
Yeah, I mean, I would use me as an example. I mean,
Okay.
when I got to Virginia, my E wasn't high enough that I accepted being the backup. It was like, all right, well, Nick, you're the guy in between the high school All-Americans that we're going to recruit because you got to, we're going to make you basically the backup. I mean, it's hard to have, 3 or 4 goalies on your roster that are high school Americans when only one's playing, right? Typically it's one's playing, one's backing up, and then that backup is either grooming somebody else, and they're working their way up. And I accepted kind of that kid's Tommy Greninger ahead of me and James Ireland behind me in years that they were better. So what I think is remarkable about Joe's story is he didn't accept it. He didn't accept that he wasn't good enough to play at high major Division I. And I think it's just I think it's a good lesson. I think when I watched Joe's Hall of Fame video is what you took out of it so much, and what you started with today is just that part was impressive. Is impressive, and I think the other part that I would say was that Joe mentioned early in the conversation was that you stayed present. Like you didn't have this massive plan, right? It was like we talked about just the success of Showtime, right? And you were hoping, it's just like, but you just stayed in the moment. You did what you were supposed to do. You did a good job doing it. You pressed forward, and now it's the most successful showcase in the country for high school boys lacrosse. I mean, so I think that those two lessons of resilience and not putting a ceiling on a little on yourself because you just stayed in the moment is.
Other lessons I've also learned from that is also that I think fosters E is surround yourself with good people.
Yeah, I was going to say, as I was saying that, I was thinking, I wonder if you're thinking that.
Yeah. Whether it's a teammate or listen, we're all on teams where there are a couple of guys on your team who are probably doing things socially or not hitting the weight room that you're probably like, I'm not going to roll with those guys.
Right.
But if you hit your wagon or you grab somebody, hey, why don't you come with me today and do something constructive and positive, you're fostering that. Or if a coach communicates that, or even I think where a coach can really build E is just acknowledging or being aware of a kid who's working on something that's not under supervision or directive. I think that can really help because that's why I try to tell the teachers, hey, why don't you come out to Anthony's game today? It's going to help him perform in your math class because he sees that you're invested in him at 4:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So
one of my daughter's teachers actually came to a couple of her water polo games last year, and that just meant the world to her.
And it also they're making an emotional deposit.
Yeah.
To eventually, because your relationship with the coach may not always be hunky-dory, but they've made a deposit in you where you're going to give a little bit of slack and flexibility, not maybe be as critical or jump on the coach because there's a foundation of care.
Right.
All right.
Foundation of care is key.
Yeah, I love that.
Can you? I'm going to write that down. So, how do you create a foundation of care with your coaches?
It's a good question.
Sorry, that wasn't.
He doesn't. He doesn't. He just talks about
it. Sorry, I didn't.
And I guess that's part of the frustration of the job is where I wish I had more time to do that. So people who are coaching in public schools, not just my district, any district in high schools, a lot of times the people are either coming with it or they don't have it, and you may not have enough time really to build it. So that is a frustration of I think of interscholastic athletics right now. But I know if Janie Smith is a teacher in the building, and I've done this actually, and I know she has a great rapport with kids, but she knows nothing about women's lacrosse. Hey, why don't you try coaching the middle school team, and just I'll help you run practice. We'll get you to where you need to be, but just be you and see if you like it, and then go from there. And I would say sometimes they're like, yeah, I'm in, I'll do it, and it's successful, and it's a good experience. Other times they'll finish the year and be like, that was so stressful, I can't do it, I got to move on.
But that's a foundation of care. Like Joe doesn't, I don't know if necessarily he can, you know,
you were there for
acknowledge that. But, but you investing in her and believing in her is a foundation. You are giving her confidence and belief in her. That is a foundation of care. The other thing I'll say is, you know, Joe and I have recently talked about a situation with one of his coaches who had, you know, there was an issue and how him explaining to me and telling me how he had to handle and it was a personal situation for the coach. And he's juggling, making sure everyone knows everyone and making sure people are okay and that they're informed because of everyone does care. So there's already a culture that Joe, in my eyes, just listening to him, has created where he cares. Right. I mean, he's demanding. I know that from him in our talks, but he is investing in care, even though it's not probably the same exact way that I can or I do. It's the little things. It's the showing up. It's asking a teacher to show up. You know, like that stuff that you know circles around and creates it.
Right. And I keep talking. I'm going to talk for Joe now, even though I just
did too.
But really, the fact that he does a preseason talk every day, not every day, every season, that talks about what expectations are. The fact that he takes calls at 10:30 at night and says, "No, it was right to call me." Those are all signals of care. Yep. Right. And those are all, that's part of your foundation. So I would say you couldn't answer that question. And I'm not supposed to be trying to do gotcha. But if you go back to the 4 stages of competence, I would say that you're unconsciously competent at creating a foundation of care. Like you are doing it all the time, but you don't even think about it because it's so natural to who you are as a person.
I guess because people define care differently. And what that looks like differently.
Right. But if I'm a new coach, if I'm an existing coach, I screwed up, and I know I can call my boss at 10:30 at night.
Right. Coming out of every meeting, my coaches take one thing out of the meeting. It's like, call me. Like, if you need something, call me.
Right.
Yeah. So I always make sure that's paramount.
But see, I'd say that's just part of who you are, so you don't even think about it. And so that's unconsciously competent. You're just really good at creating that foundation of care.
Well, and Nick knows me well enough. Like, I am very much like probably part of my wiring. Part of that is because I want to be able to plan or get ahead of things. I don't like, so yes, it's care, but I guess it's also selfishly self-serving because you're giving me that call at 10 o'clock. That's going to allow me now to insulate fallout or a bigger issue, having a molehill become a mountain, or manage that mountain.
But I would say, I would still say that's about protecting the community, protecting the player, protecting the parents, protecting the coach, protecting the school, protecting all of that, right? So that's still your foundation of care. The fact that you want to be prepared, right, means you care.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to.
No.
But really, I come back to the 4 stages of competence apply for you, and you are just, your foundation of care happens without you even having to think about it. So you're unconsciously competent at that. So, and I apologize. I didn't mean to get you the gotcha question, but it's actually a great demonstration of unconscious competence.
Yeah.
And that was one of my second favorite episodes.
So Joe,
so wait, what was your first?
I love the fountain drain.
Okay, gotcha.
He shared that with me, and I've shared that with my staff. So one year I was really, right after he did it, and I was really big on it. And, so my coach would be busting my chops and just sending me emojis of fountains or like big, the Bellagio I'd get from people. I'm like, all right, I get it. But it means like it did resonate with some. Yeah, with some of them,
Stuck with them.
All right, so Joe, what would you what would you want us to have future episode on that is that you'd love to pass along to your coaches? What do you think we should
Strategies on building E.
Okay.
Certainly. Because I think like from coaching knowledge, you're talking about knowledge of sport. They can do that.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that on YouTube in an hour. So I think E is really critical to help facilitators of athletic administration or coaching, giving them the toolkit to do that. But you also have to be, and it has to be ways where it's easier for me to go to my staff with something that you've shared rather than me being a prophet in my own land.
Right.
Because
Yeah, you
I'm
can't
with
be a
them
prophet in your own
right.
land.
And it's so, and you rather show a shared vision or proven concept than just unproven theory.
Right.
You know?
Gotcha.
No, I like it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a
That's
great
not
idea.
on the list. It is
Yeah.
now, though.
Well, Joe, thanks for
Sorry
joining
for going
us.
too fast. Sorry for going too fast.
No, thanks for joining us on our episode today. I think there's a lot to learn. I think there's so many your experiences, player, coach, administrator, pro, everything. So I think you offered a lot of nuggets. Something we're going to reserve the right to bring you out of the bullpen at some point again. So
More than happy.
but
He's a
seriously,
starter. He's a starter.
Yeah, that was awesome. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, Joe, this is great. I got so much out of it. I really appreciate it. And once again, I was impressed just watching your video, but talking to you in person and listening to you today is even more impressive. So thank you so much for coming.
Pleasure's all mine. As long as I'm up 1-18, it'll be a complete day.
Thanks for joining us today on the Nick Anthony Show. Look forward to future guests that have a lot to live up to, but really excited for you to tune in to our next week's episode.
Epilogue.
Nick, thanks for having Joe Ceglia in here. That was a really fascinating conversation. I got a lot out of it.
Yeah.
He's a fascinating guy.
Yes.
Talk about a guy, and I know this is player side, but talk about a guy who has an E off the charts, and I'm sure he's gone through the rest of his life, but that he was really an impressive guy.
No, pump the brakes on different. He's going to listen to this. No, he was great. Joe's a remarkable person.
Yeah.
And huge, great friend. And I think there was a lot to take out of it. So I want to hear what you got out of it.
Well, actually, again, it was 5 things. And I don't know if 5's always going to happen, but Denise, I came out with 5 things, and I'm coming out with 5 things here too. But the number one thing was his emphasis, and I don't know if it's his AD perspective or I'm sure he coached this way too, but his emphasis on communication, and it wasn't just communication to his coaches, right? It was communication all the way down, making sure his coaches talk to his players, make sure he was talking to the parents, making sure he was talking to his organizational superiors, all that kind of stuff. Just his emphasis on communication 24 hours a day.
Yeah, can't really emphasize enough.
No, and he just, that was a big deal. The practice as you play thing, I know that lots of coaches kind of talk about that, but I thought his emphasis on it, how important it was, really stuck with me. I really loved that he coaches his coaches to put themselves in the position of their players. And how do your players feel playing for you?
Yeah.
Do they like playing for you?
Yeah.
Right? Do they feel good playing for you? And yeah, I know there's pros and that's a little different, but I tell you, he's dealing with high school players. So that's really, really important. A lot of those kids, I'd say, 99.99% aren't going to be pros, but it even happens with pros. If you look in, again, I'm a sports fan, but I'm not a fanatic, so I can't remember all the names, but it didn't really seem like the Eagles offensive line loved playing for whose coach name I can't remember right now.
Stein. Let's Jeff Stein.
There you go. But I think they really love playing for him, even though I'm sure he drives them and everything else. So how do they feel when they play for him? I think he brings the best out of them by making them feel good. And that's what it appears from an outsider, fan perspective. And then also keep the kids active. I think that's really important to me. I just really, when he started talking about lines and waiting in lines and all the downtime and all that kind of stuff, that just absolutely is a pet one of my pet peeves on, but
Yeah.
it drives me nuts, and I really click with that. And he triggered ideas
Yeah.
for me, right, that I would apply.
Well, I think that's future conversations for you and I, but and even when we talk to other coaches, is structuring practices and how do you do it? And
Right.
but go ahead.
Just being aware of it,
100%,
right?
yeah.
And so, and then just like Denise talked about, an everyday person, I really like Joe's. The way he describes his core values is a foundation of care.
Yeah.
And I just think that's so important in today's environment with today's youth, in that it's just like you have to show that you care in order to reach them, in order to get them to improve their E or their K or their P or any of that kind of stuff. You've got to show that you care before you're going to get the best out of them. Why should they listen to you unless they know you care about them? And so I love the fact that foundation of care I'm going to use. I'm going to steal it from Joe, and I'm going to use it.
Yeah, if you use the emotional deposit, make an emotional
That too.
deposit. I love that.
Yes.
So related to that, so that a couple things that I thought he framed really well. One thing I think he'd really framed was he looked at good coaches. He described good coaches as having good communication, which you always emphasize, organization, caring deeply, what we just talked about, and then being self-aware. So I love that that's what he, when we asked him, that's what the four things he kind of said.
Right.
And then I would expand a little bit on the practice conversation when he talked about conditioning, and he to condition through competitive activities and practices and drills. And I loved that how he talked about not liking to just run, but he knew when he knew he was playing or competing, if that was part of his conditioning, that really worked. And then the last thing I would say that I really liked when he described the coaches he played for, and how, the way Joe thought, he pulled something different out of the ones when we asked him, who would you learn from or who were your best coaches? He pulled something different out of each one of them. And I thought that was really interesting and shows his awareness, his high E, that he's open to learn and really kind of could zero in on exactly why. So I thought they were really great conversations. I think he had a lot to offer, and I loved his perspective as an athletic director. Obviously, it's very similar lens than me, but such great ways of describing things. So loved it, and I want to thank Joe immensely for making the trip down to see us down here in Philly. I will say we halved our match in golf that day. So
What do you mean you halved your match?
which means we tied it. We played golf that day.
That sounds like you lost and you're making up a story.
No, that's not true. We have a match. We play match play, and
Okay.
he needed to beat me on 18, and he didn't. And so we tied. And so
Okay.
I hung on. So, but it was exciting. And thanks, Joe, again for making the trip. Hopefully everyone enjoyed the conversation as much as we did, and we look forward to our future episodes.
Thanks, Joe Ceglia. I really appreciate getting to know you, you spending your time here with us. Hope you're having a great day. Hope everybody out it's just having a great day.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. We want to hear from you with your questions and comments. You can find us at thenickanthonyshow.com and our social media handles, which you can find in our description.